It's sometimes tempting to think of the royals at independence rather in those terms as a kind of high-class cabaret, and therefore to attach relatively little significance to their role. In fact, however, a great deal of energy and anxiety was invested by Whitehall and by the palace into this element of the transfer of power. And indeed, at least on one occasion, Independence Day was actually rescheduled to fit in to enable a senior royal to be present. So first thing, let's go to something that few people have alluded to already. What was the food chain? There was undoubtedly a clear, if usually unspoken, hierarchy of royals. And this might be divided into four main categories: unattainable, deluxe, default, and in the great John Reed phrase, not fit for purpose. The first category shrank by a factor of 50% between 1957 and 1961. As Tony and Richard have already alluded to, at the time of Malay and Ghana's independence in 1957, there was a clear ruling from Whitehall that the Queen Mother, Princess Margaret and the Duke of Edinburgh would not be involved in Independence Days. And indeed, although in the case of Princess Margaret and Prince Philip, this rule was fairly quickly waived, by May 1966, the Permanent Undersecretary at the Colonial Office, Sir Hilton Poynton, could describe as a well-established palace rule that neither the Queen nor the Queen Mother presided over independence celebrations. Queens, and even former queens, obviously didn't give things away. The first entrant into the deluxe category was Princess Margaret. She was scheduled to attend the Nigerian independence celebrations in 1960, but withdrew a few months beforehand in favour of Princess Alexandra of Kent. And this, it was explained by the palace, was to allow her a few months of privacy after her marriage to Anthony Armstrong-Jones. Thereafter, it seems to have taken a little while to coax her back onto the circuit, although she did preside over Jamaican independence in 1962. It took a little longer for the Colonial Office to reconcile itself with the idea that Prince Philip would attend independence celebrations. Yet this was very much a recognition of the prince's potential deluxe status. Officials feared that his presence might create, quote, jealousies in other newly independent countries. Colonial Secretary Ian MacLeod, however, for reasons we'll consider in a minute, overruled these objections, and the prince represented the Queen at Tanganyika's independence in December 1961. Thereafter, he became the prize catch for any Independence Day. In July 1966, for example, the Colonial Office told the palace of the preferred batting order, that cricket metaphor again, of Barbados ministers for their country's Independence Day. Quote, first Prince Philip, second the Prince of Wales, third the Duke of Kent, with Princess Alexandra in reserve, if still able to undertake public engagements. At this point, however, the palace judged the Prince of Wales to be too young to undertake such engagements, and it wasn't until 1970 that he came on stream representing the Queen at Fiji's independence celebrations and joining the ranks of the deluxe royals. In the third category came George VI's sister, Mary, the Princess Royal, who presided over the Independence Days of Trinidad and Tobago in 1962 and Zambia in 1964. And, of course, more prolifically, those great stalwarts of independence ceremonies, the Gloucesters and the Kents, two generations of dukes, princes and princesses. David Cannadine asked about the processes by which particular royals were chosen to preside over particular countries' independence. Well, in the case of the Kents, you sometimes get the impression that they divided these duties up amongst themselves in the way that other families chose package holidays. In January 1966, Hilton Poynton at the Colonial Office recorded, quote, "I understand it's been virtually decided that the Duke of Kent should do British Guiana and Princess Marina should do Basutu land and Bechuana land. We'd originally thought the other way round, but Princess Marina has apparently said she's particularly keen to do the African ones, and the Duke of Kent, who's never been to the Western Hemisphere, would like to do British Guiana." In the fourth category came the more distant royal relations, whose potential deployment raised official anxieties about slighting the territory in question. In January 1966, the Colonial Office told the Palace that the governor of British Guiana had proved unenthusiastic about the proposal that Lord Mountbatten should represent the Queen at the territory's independence celebrations. He claimed that there would be real disappointment if, quote, "a royal proper couldn't do it." Now, while this hierarchy was broadly accepted, some territories had special requirements which cut across the categories. In 1973, for example, the governor of the Bahamas specifically requested an unaccompanied male royal. This, it was explained, was because Government House was in such a run-down condition that it couldn't easily accommodate a female royal who was expected to have a somewhat larger retinue than a male one. This left four possible candidates: Prince Charles, the Duke of Edinburgh, the Duke of Kent, and Prince Richard of Gloucester. The latter two were presumed to be too uxorious to want to leave their wives at home, and the Duke of Edinburgh's engagement diary was already full. This left Prince Charles, who was currently serving as a naval officer on HMS Minerva, which was stationed conveniently in the West Indies, so Charles it was. Now,